Become an Israel Update partner. I've just launched a brand new teaching series that's available exclusively for Israel Update partners called When Good People Fall, looking at various characters of the Bible and taking lessons that I know are applicable to you and I both today to bring your heart encouragement, knowing that God is not done with you. So if you are not an Israel Update partner, let me encourage you to sign up, to join with us in giving into the nation of Israel, giving to the Jewish people, knowing that what we do now, what we are sowing, is counting in eternity. God bless you. Welcome to Israel Update. We're about to go straight into an update from Doobie, which is an incredibly important thing because he is explaining exactly what's going on regarding the chaotic situation in Israel politically right now. It's very important that we understand what's happening. I learned something listening to his update, so I'm encouraging you to watch the entire thing. It's only about 9 minutes. And after that, we are playing an exclusive Israel Update partnership teaching for you, just so that you get a taste of what it's like to belong to the Israel Update partnership. If you don't already sow into Israel Monthly, this is your opportunity to sign up and do so. We've got a bunch of exclusive content in there for you, and the teaching that you're going to see from me after the Doobie segment is just a little taste of what is happening and what's going on in the partnership program. So let's go to Doobie now, and then make sure you stay tuned for the exclusive partnership teaching series.
Shalom, shalom, Israel partners, and welcome to our weekly report. And this week we'll speak about what's happening again in the political arena in Israel, while the government of Israel was passing a very, very certain law in the Knesset about what we call the law of reasonableness, which is something that is very hard for people to understand and to realize. And that's what I would say the left side of the political map in Israel is using, the fact that a lot of people don't understand this long word and very complicated one. And they're trying to tell the people in Israel, to incite them and tell them, oh my God, this is actually a breach of democracy. The government of Israel is turning into a tyranny. This law is the mother of all evil. What are we talking about? This law is one of the basic elements of any democratic government to be able to govern. Because what's happening now in Israel is a situation that for years and years and years now, the left wing has been able to infiltrate far deep into the legal system. Most of the Supreme Court judges, most of the high-ranked officers, most of the left side elite, they are lefties, a lot of them, and they control the legal system in Israel. They control the political life. They control the financial life in the country. And when a government from the right wing was elected, there's a right-wing coalition in Israel led by Benjamin Netanyahu. Those people who lost the elections in the polls, they want to win the situation in the streets. They have so much money to be able to finance those demonstrations, this political unrest that is taking over throughout Israel for almost 29 weeks now. Since the government led by Netanyahu was elected, the left was trying to tell the people of Israel that the government is about to kidnap the democracy. They want to turn the country into tyranny. Benjamin Netanyahu is leading us to a verge of disaster. And I can tell you one thing, they are very successful in convincing many people, because the people don't understand exactly what it means, this law of reasonableness. And let me tell you what it is. Anytime that there was a right-wing government who wants to pass any laws that are against whatever the left believes in, they go to the Supreme Court, they appeal to the Supreme Court, and they know that there's a sure game, because in the Supreme Court, they will always choose the left side wing. And the government cannot make any laws, any decisions, literally cannot govern, cannot pass anything that is unlikely to be happening in the eyes of the left. So for them, it's very convenient because, let me tell you, even if a government is elected from the right wing, on practice, they have the government because any law, any rule, anything that the right wing is trying to pass, the left is destroying it through the court immediately. It's an immediate appeal. And what's happening now is that the current government of Israel decided that enough with that. They want to give the power to the people, which means nowadays the power is in the hands of the elite, the hands of the courts, the hands of the Supreme Court judges, and the people of Israel, which wants to have some things in their favor, cannot have it happen because the left is deciding, okay, the government wants to give this budget, but it's unlikely to be happening. It's not reasonable in their hand, in their eyes, and therefore they dismiss it. And hundreds of laws and budgets and ideas of the right wing to literally base their government has been toppled and overruled throughout the years by the courts and by the judges of Israel. So eventually, finally, the last elections were all about this. The government, or actually the parties that are part of the coalition now, this was their major thing, their major call to the people of Israel. They said, listen, guys, do you want your voice to be heard or not? Do you want us to be serving you or not? If you do, we have to take some power from the hands of the Supreme Court and the judges and pass it back to the people, to those who are the lawmakers, and they are the real representatives of the people of Israel. And all of a sudden, as we say in Yiddish, oy vey, all hell breaks free. The parties of the left wing, they can see that now, finally, the people of Israel voted to take their power back in their hands. And until now, they were rest because they couldn't care. Okay, they cared because they want the positions and they want the budgets and, and the titles. But they say, in the end of the day, if the stupid majority is going to choose something different, we can still stay in control because they can't change anything. That was what's happening. And obviously, all these people that for many years, they were against Bibi because of his legal situation, because of him going to court and having problems with all kinds of, I would say, corruption and situations like this, which has nothing to do with this law that just passed. They are targeting the people of Israel. They call the movement Just Not Bibi. And they said to these people, look, he's passing all these laws to get himself outside of court. But it has nothing to do with this. And people, they're not smart enough. They don't understand exactly. And they're able to get hundreds of thousands of people out in the streets, financed by a coup that is probably about to happen when Ehud Barak, a former prime minister of Israel, and some of his proxies and friends in the political arena are targeting this elected government. And eventually, we are seeing a situation here in Israel that everything is going down to the security of the country of Israel when the high-ranked officers, a lot of reservists from the military, they buy into this lie of the left that are telling them that the government of Israel is seeking to destroy the Israeli security and the Israeli democracy. They buy into that, and now they refuse to serve. Some people from the very top secret units of Israel, from intelligence and other forces, the Air Force, are coming out now and they're saying, we're not going to serve this government because he's trying to turn us into tyranny. This is a big lie. What the government is trying to do is give the power back to the majority and not to these lefty elites that feel comfortable where nothing is done against their will. So what we need right now is to pray for the security of Israel, to pray for unity in this country, to pray for the people to wake up and realize and understand what his law is all about and what is the government really trying to do. They're trying to give the power back to the people that elected them. Try to imagine that anywhere in the world, some people are voting and then eventually it's not changing anything. That is tyranny. And so this is what we call in Israel right now, it's the tyranny of the legal system against the democracy of the elected government. And the enemies of Israel are watching us, eating ourselves from inside, getting also almost on the verge of a civil war, literally a verge of a civil war. Until now, the right wing opposition organizations were able to hold on from the right-wing people not to go and protest and stand in front of this massive amount of lefties and fight them, literally fight them in the streets, because that's what the enemies of Israel, they want. And tonight, this night, because we are filming on a Wednesday, Israel and the Jewish people around the world are starting the fasting of Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, one of the holiest days in the Jewish calendar, that we remember and commemorate the destruction of the first temple and the second temple that happened on the same date. We are, as some people are saying, almost on the verge of destroying the third temple, which we call it almost the third kingdom now, since the people of Israel miraculously came back home to the Holy Land. So please, God, please, Lord God of Israel, bring unity and scatter our enemies and bring us together again, because once we are not united, we are going to lose everything. I love you. Shabbat Shalom. Bye.
Even though nobody was really speaking about it from a pulpit, the scriptures are there. And at the end of the day, any addiction is a subpar way of living. It's so much as condemned from a pulpit. The one thing that isn't condemned is food. Food.
Yes.
Food is not condemned, and food is one of the more difficult things because you have to eat. You can't avoid being faced with the need to eat. But somehow, even though if we're going to talk about the fruits of the flesh and go the Galatians route, what Paul speaks about, and throughout the New Testament, we'll talk about how you shouldn't lie, and we'll talk about making sure there's sexual purity, and we'll talk about all these different things. The one thing everybody kind of skips over in general is gluttony.
Jesus said to her, I don't condemn you. That's mercy. But then grace came in and he said, now go and sin no more.
Welcome, Israel Update partners. Today I am going to be speaking to you about Samson in the Bible, and this is part of a series called When Good People Fall. And the reason that I'm doing this, the reason that I'm focusing on this is because so often when we think about these different biblical characters, at least this is something I know I've always done my entire life, is I compare myself and all the things that are wrong with me to the strengths of these people that we've read about so often. But with almost all of them, without fail, there are a list of strengths that accomplished incredible things, but there's also a list of weaknesses. And I believe that we stand to learn a lot from both of those things as evidenced in their lives. And so with Samson, this was a child that was given as a gift to the nation of Israel. He came from parents who, his mother was barren and God opened her womb. And in Judges 13, verse 24, it says, the woman gave birth to a boy and named him Samson. He grew and the Lord blessed him. Verse 25, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he was in Mahaneh-dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. Now, when we think about Samson, we think strength. That's like the first thing that comes to mind. If you grew up in Sunday school or if you didn't, most people know, at least specifically people that have been in church for any length of time, we're going to know that one of the things about Samson, the thing that marked him, if there was one thing that marked him, it was his strength. He was an incredibly strong person. One time he killed hundreds of Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey. And I sometimes think about that. Like, what did that look like? Just you grabbed this jawbone and started beating people over the head with it. Like, what did that look like? He was somebody that could lift city gates himself, just pick them up and move them. He was somebody that carried incredible physical strength. He was kind of known as the strongest guy, like strongman competition. That guy would have blown everybody else out the water. So Samson, he had incredible physical strength. He protected his home and his friends. He was raised up by God as a judge in Israel, and he was a man that brought protection. He was a defender. He was somebody that was ordained by God to lead the nation of Israel. So this man of strength, of stature, somebody that would be looked upon by everybody else. And it's like, I can imagine it being like, Samson's here. If everybody was afraid and there were enemies around, you don't have to worry. Samson's here. He's this person that he just brought stability. He brought peace. He brought a sense of security, a sense of strength to the nation, to his friends, to his family, to his home. And that's obviously something that we think about when we think of Samson. But one of the other things that we need to think about is the weaknesses of Samson. And when we think about Samson, the person that we generally think about in correlation to that is Delilah. Because one of the weaknesses Samson carried is that he was overcome by lust. His lust completely overcame him. He had a problem with pretty women, and he wanted them, and he took them, and he had them, and he indulged in all sorts of things that we would deem today as being immoral, as being wrong before the eyes of God. He wouldn't take counsel or advice. When he was given counsel, he didn't take it, which means there was probably some sort of arrogance in him. And I suppose you can kind of understand that if, you think about it, he's this guy who's the strongest guy around, and he's the one that everybody comes to, and he's the solution bringer, and he's the strength giver, and he's the protector and the defender. But he was also this guy who just wouldn't take counsel or advice. And what ultimately ended up happening to Samson, and obviously for the sake of time, because I'm trying to do these in really short little 10-minute bursts for you, what ended up happening with Samson is that because he was overcome by his lust, because he wouldn't take counsel or advice, this woman Delilah was able to take the source of his strength from him, which was his long hair. And one of the scariest scriptures, I think, in the Bible, to be perfectly honest, this has always scared me. And it's in Judges 16, verse 20. Then she, Delilah, called Samson, the Philistines are upon you. He awoke from his sleep and thought, I'll go out as before and shake myself free. And this is the kicker. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. And what ended up coming as a result of that is that the Philistines did come upon him, this great enemy that he'd conquered over many times. This enemy came and they gouged his eyes out. And ultimately they ended up leading him along as a parade, mocking him. He was seen as the hero that they conquered. And he came to a really tragic end because what he ended up doing is they brought him into this pagan temple, the Philistine god Dagon. And they brought him into Dagon's temple and put him up as a parade, it really was an element of mockery where everybody, all the Philistines were gathered, mocking him and laughing at him. And he had no eyes, so he couldn't see any longer. All the strength that he'd had, all the vision that he'd had was taken from him. And he was placed in between two pillars. And verse 28 of Judges 16, it says, Then Samson prayed to the Lord, O sovereign Lord, remember me. O God, please strengthen me just once more. And let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. Verse 29, Then Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood, bracing himself against them, his right hand on the one and his left on the other. Samson said, Let me die with the Philistines. Then he pushed with all his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people in it. Thus he killed many more when he died than while he lived. In Samson's final act, he repented. He asked God to strengthen him once more, and the Spirit of God did come upon him. But he died very early. And you've got to wonder what his life would have looked like, how many more victories he could have won if he'd actually been able to overcome the lust that came against him. Genesis 3 is very clear. It says, Sin desires to have you. It is crouching at your door, but you must master it. And all of us have things that desire us, and they look different for all of us. And what happened with Samson is that although he was this man of strength, and he was this man that protected everybody and was a judge and a defender and a victor, he ultimately ended up dying early because he was overcome by his lust, because he wouldn't take counsel or advice. And he lost his eyes, which I can't imagine would have been a particularly pleasant experience. I don't think the Philistines put him in a chair and thought, oh, let's give this man some anesthetic and nicely take his eyes out. I would imagine it was particularly gruesome, horrifying, excruciatingly painful. And so he paid the price in his body because he was overcome by his lust. And he ended up dying early, which is really quite tragic when you think about it. But and this is the point that I keep making in all of these little mini teachings that I'm doing for you. The point that I'm trying to make is that God is able to use people despite their weaknesses, in spite of his weaknesses, in spite of his massive downfall. This man who was once hailed as the hero of Israel, he ended up falling so hard. He had such a hard fall that he ended up being put in chains and paraded around the enemy that he'd once fought and overcome. And everybody mocked him and jeered at him, and he couldn't see any longer. And he would have been in pain and just really been left alone, I assume, with his thoughts, reflecting. And I think too many of us can do this, where we can get stuck in the past, all the what ifs. What if I'd done this differently? What if life had turned out differently? What if I'd made different decisions? But his life still counted. And as the scriptures say, he killed many more of these enemies when he died than when he lived. And there's lessons to be learned here. God can use us in spite of our weaknesses, but God also gives us so many opportunities to turn. And so my encouragement to you is don't give up. If you're constantly being overcome by something, don't give up. Sometimes the prayers that I'm able to squeak out to God in the harshest times of life and the darkest times is I say, please don't ever let me go. Please don't let me go, no matter what it is I'm struggling with, no matter what it is that I'm battling to overcome, no matter how many times it might feel like I'm running around the same mountain. Don't let me go. In your mercy, keep me. And that's my prayer for you. I don't know what you're struggling with. I don't know what difficulties you're facing. For some people, it's the same as Samson. It's a sexual temptation. It's a lust issue. For some of us, it's food. And we've spoken about this quite a lot. It's something I talk about fairly frequently because, it's a struggle that I myself am still working through, is the temptation to indulge in sugar. And that might sound quite silly in comparison to Samson, but a lot of people end up dying early because they're addicted to a substance that's slowly killing them. And I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you're struggling with, but my encouragement to you today, looking at the life of Samson, is that God can work in whatever mess we're in. He's still able to use us. And when we look at all these different biblical characters as we're going through this series, the point is that these good men did fall, but God still used them, and they got up again, and they continued to keep going. Not all of them, but the vast majority. And so the encouragement I have to you is don't give up. And my prayer for you is that God would never, ever let you go, and that he would show you that no matter what condition you're in, he can use you. God bless.
My name is Jane Clement, and I am the president of the House of Destiny Network.
My name is Donna Clement Petrushka, and I am the vice president of the House of Destiny Network. My dad used to have a thing called $5 in your face offering. And he did that because he understood that sometimes people might be sitting there saying, well, I only have a little bit to give. But I often use the analogy of a car engine. Everybody feels like maybe they're not too important, or maybe their little part they're playing is small, or what can I do as I see these things going on around me? And you may think that that's a little bit, but it's a huge amount when we come together and support one another. And so just as little as $5 can help us with our missions. It can help us with just keeping these prophecies, all these prophecies that came through my dad, coming to you. And it takes quite a bit to be able to find it and edit it and present it. And so there's a whole staff of people that work very, very hard to make sure that we can get this information to you. And it is vital in this season because of what was prophesied. And so, again, you may feel that $5 is not much, but it's something. And then you are a part of something and a part of doing something where you may feel like it's, there's nothing you can do. There is something you can do. You can support the people who God has put at the front lines, who are actively making a difference.
I first met Kim in 1978. The price of gold back then was $200 an ounce. Today, it's gone up to $2,000 an ounce.
I can tell you inflation is a real thing because in a very short period of time, just living in the state of Tennessee, I had moved from California. I could see the difference when I moved here, just in the grocery store, and since 2020, the way prices have risen, it's not much different than when I lived in California now.
To schedule a consultation with Beverly Hills Precious Metals, go to bh-pm.com and make an appointment today.
One thing about Mike Lindell, and this is going back to many, many years, we like to support people like him because, number one, he's a Christian in the marketplace, which is something that my dad not only prophesied a lot about, but really truly believed in. And so for many years, our ministry has supported Mike Lindell for being a Christian, but also supporting one another. It makes us stronger against those big tech people who are backed by billions of dollars, that together we can make a difference and get a message out there.
By using the promo code Kim Clement, you're not only supporting Mike Lindell, but you're also helping us reach the unreachable, touch the untouchable, and reach the world with the gospel.
This was sacred to God. This is exactly why I need some action from my people. Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be with you.
Over 40 years ago, Kim and I embarked on a ministry journey that has now become a global network through the power of the internet. As part of this pioneering work, we are gathering people from all over the world to worship together, grow in our faith, and inspire hope through an uplifting message. We are dedicated to reaching out with God's message of hope and love to all without discrimination or judgment. We invite you to join our House of Destiny free membership that allows you to connect with members from around the world. Through our prayer wall, you can post your requests and have others join us in prayer. It's so powerful when the saints gather and believe for a breakthrough. We invite you to join today. Simply click the online church login and sign up. Partnerships are vital to our global outreach, enabling us to take the love and hope of Jesus Christ to those who need it most. Our Boots on the Ground Partnership Program physically ministers to those in desperate situations all over the world. The Israel Partnership furthers Kim's legacy of outreach to Israel and Jewish people worldwide. We invite you to become a partner today. We are here for you, and we have worked hard to provide the resources and tools to help you grow in your faith. Join us today and be part of a community that inspires hope, brings restoration to life, and often healing from the past. Together, we can make a difference, and we thank you for your ongoing support.